Good morning and welcome to the Crafty Canary for your tip on Tuesday. Today we're continuing our series on refurbishing old and dilapidated elastic, and we're going to do it in a pair of my workout pants. Now this is very similar to the pajama pants that we did, particularly the gray pair where the elastic was sewn in and not really in a casing. But the addition on this one is that it has a drawstring, and this drawstring we will want to be really careful not to sew it into the elastic so that it can still function as a drawstring. Now this pair is really old. You can see that it has holes in the waistband, but I can still get a little bit of wear out of it if I get some elastic in it. I noticed the other day after I worked out that I had the drawstring tied so tight that it left a mark on my waist where it was so tight. So I don't need to be doing that, and I want to have it at least so that they will stay up if the drawstring comes untied. I don't want to be walking around our neighborhood on my daily walks and have my pants fall down. So let's fix that so that we don't have that problem. Okay, well, the drawstring actually is functional. It's not just sewn on like the ones on my pajama pants, and it is into what made a casing, even though the elastic is not in a casing, because the elastic is sewn on like those gray pajama pants where it's serged and sewn to the elastic and to the pants all at the same time. If, again, I was doing this for a customer, I would take the time to pick all of those many stitches out, make my own casing, and put it back in as much the same way as it was done at the factory as possible. But I don't have that machine that the factories have, so I have to take additional steps to do it. And since it's just for my own purpose, it's an old pair, nobody's going to see them, and I don't really care if they do because I'm working out, then I'm just going to do it a shortcut way, in a way that is much easier, especially if you're not a seamstress who has a lot of time, or someone who's been sewing a long time and doesn't know how to make it look like it looked in the factory. So the first thing we need to do is take this drawstring out. So it's pretty easy. It's basically just looks like a shoestring. It has those aglets on the end, so it came out really easily. We're gonna put that aside. We're going to do very similarly to the way we did the gray pajama pants. We're going to measure our elastic on our waist. So I have this 1-inch elastic here, and when you buy it, you'll want to buy enough to go your natural waist measurement. That will be plenty plus some, or just buy a package of elastic. Usually that should be enough. So what I want to do is comfortably fit it around my waist. Again, I have on a high-waisted dress, so I'm going to go down to where I naturally wear my this is not pajama pants, where I wear my workout pants, and I am going to pull it a little snug. I'm not going to just do it where it's comfortable, or, well, I do want it to be comfortable, but I'm not going to just do it where it fits without stretching like that. If I put those on, that would be too big. So I'm going to stretch it to where I need it to be when I put them on. If I didn't stretch it, then they would, again, just fall off and it would be too big. So I'm going to overlap it about 1 inch. Find my place where that overlap stops. Cut it right there. All right, let's get my elastic out of the way, and I'm going to sew this on very much like I sewed it onto those pajama pants. I'm going to find the back seam. This pair, I have to be really careful because my back center seam is right here, and my tag is off a little bit. So it could be very easy to think, oh, the center back is right here because that's where the tag is, but find the back seam, and that's where you want to go. Now on these, we're going to do like I should have done on those pajama pants, and I'm going to find the center of the elastic and mark it with a pen. You could also mark it with your marking pencil if you would rather do that than with a pen. Mark it with your pen, and then I'm going to put that on my center front seam so that I know that my elastic is pretty much even throughout. So finding my center front, which is also where those holes were, where my drawstring went into, and I'm going to place that there and pin it on. I believe I lost power in one of my lights, so sorry for the shadows on my right side there. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and find the center seam, center back seam, and I'm going to overlap it about 1 inch because that's how I'm going to overlap my elastic. I'm going to pin that one. And then you'll notice that we have from the back seam to the front seam, our elastic is much less than our fabric and our old elastic. So we're going to have to stretch as we pin. So stretching the elastic, not the fabric and the old waistband, but only the elastic over the top, and pinning it so that it works out pretty evenly to where when we come to that front center where that other pin is. Sorry, you can't see what I'm doing. I'm just going to kind of check. So I stretch and pin. And stretch and pin. So I'm going to pin all the way around this waistband from that back center all the way to it again, and I'll be right back. So now that I've got it pinned all the way around and I'm back to my back center seam, I'm going to overlap about an inch like I did when I measured it on my waist. That pin I'm going to stick in kind of catty corner. All right, and what I have in my machine this time is white thread on the top, because that's going to go on the elastic, and black thread in the bobbin, because that's going to go underneath on my black fabric. And that is just the way I like to do things, so that the threads match our fabric and we don't have, you know, black thread on white elastic or white thread on black fabric, just to make it look a little bit nicer. Again, it's only me seeing it, so if you had something in your machine and you don't want to rethread your machine and you're not worried about what it looks like, just keep your thread on and do it the way you'd like to. Again, but if you're doing it for somebody else, or if you're doing it for a garment that is going to be seen and you do care, match your thread so that it looks nice and professional. So let's get this sewn on. And we're going to do it like we did the other one, where we sew about 1/8 of an inch from the top and 1/8 of an inch from the bottom. And that's going to give you a 3/4 inch casing to insert your elastic back on. But I almost forgot. Let's not forget, before we do that, we want to mark where those holes are, because we're going to sew this on top, and then those holes to put the cord are not there anymore. So let's go to the front center, and we kind of have to look beneath where I've got it pinned and find where those holes were. So there's one. So I'm going to take my pencil. You can use just a regular pencil, or you can use your sewing marking pencils, and I'm going to just make a mark where that slit is going to need to be. And then I'm going to find the other one, just kind of looking under the pin. There it is. And make a mark where that slit's going to be, because I'm going to need to slit the elastic in order to get it into that casing and underneath the elastic. Okay, so let's start with the top. And again, you want to remember to stretch your elastic. So pretty close to the edge. I'm going to start my sewing. Let me find my pedal here, and back stitch. And I am going to take my pins out so that I can not sew over those or have an uneven stitch. So I'm going to pull from the front and the back, making sure that I don't miss that elastic. Put my needle into the elastic and the fabric when I'm taking pins out and when I'm pulling, so that I don't pull it so that it moves and comes away and I have a crooked stitch. So here we go, pulling and stitching. Hand wheel, needle down. Let's take that pin out. Put the presser foot back down. Take this pin out and sew. This will take me a few minutes, so I'm going to finish both sides, the top and the bottom, sewing these, and then I'll be right back. So my elastic is sewn on top and bottom. So what we want to do now is find those marks that I made that show where those holes are that the cord needs to go into. And I'm going to take my seam ripper. Now, a good seam ripper has a blade on the inside. So you've got the top that helps you pick out the stitches, but you also have a blade. It actually is really sharp. If you get your finger in there, you could get a cut. So be really careful with it. But that's what we're going to use to cut the slit. So I'm going to find the bottom of the mark, or where I want the slit to be, and I'm going to go in, and I'm being really careful to make sure that I only feel the elastic and not the fabric in there. And I've got my finger underneath so that I know I'm not going all the way through. If I was going all the way through, I do not want to cut a hole in the front of my pants. I only want to cut it in the elastic. So I want to be real careful not to go all the way through, but just through the elastic. And then I'm going to just, you hear that little rip as it cuts it. And I want to be careful not to go all the way to the top, but only to where I had the mark. Now, you can even see that's fuzzy and that's going to ravel a little bit. This is not a perfect fix. This is not a fix that I would do for a customer, because I would not want these raw edges and these ravelly edges on a customer's pants. But again, it's just basically a temporary fix. It's just a fix to get me some more wears out of these pants, and it's just for me, and I'm okay with that shortcut. So I'm going to cut the other slit, again, being really careful not to go all the way through, and slit only up to where I want it to go. And sometimes you might even put the end of your seam ripper through where you want it to stop. So that way your seam ripper is not going up into here, because if I didn't, see, it's going up into here and it might even poke a hole at the top of my waistband. I don't want that. So I'm going to go to where the top of my slit needs to be, put the end of my seam ripper there, and then just rip. Okay, now I'm going to insert that cord back into the pants. And I'm going to use my handy dandy little tool that I've told you about in videos before. But again, you can also use your a big safety pin, or you know, not a huge one, because you want it to be able to go through the slit. And then again, this time we are going to have to be careful because that slit's not super big and the tool has this big end and then my aglet sticking out. So I want to go in there, but I also want to make sure that I get into the hole that was in the pants so that it's all the way in the casing and not just under the elastic. Although if it was just under the elastic, that really would be okay too. So here we go, and hopefully I won't have to cut my hole any bigger because this tool goes through it. I don't know, it's pretty tight. I might have to. I'm going to get my seam ripper and make my hole just a tad bigger. I just don't want it to go all the way to the top of that elastic seam and tear anymore. I've got a bit of a ravel, so I'm going to cut that. See if this will go in. Yay, it's going in. Sorry again that you can't see it. All right, and we've got all that to try to get through, so I'm gonna wriggle, wiggle, hoping that I'm not tearing anything. That's always the question, huh? And again, it's just mine, so I'm not super concerned about it. If it was a customer's, I would not be doing this. I would be doing it differently and knowing that it wasn't gonna tear and wasn't gonna ravel. All right, now let's get this through. Again, as we're going over seams, it might be a little difficult and you just kind of have to maneuver and wriggle. Don't get frustrated, just keep trying as you do it. All right. I'm gonna do this and come back to you so you don't have to sit here and watch me and listen to me babble as I do it. So I'll be back in just a second. I finally made it back to the other end. That one was a little bit more time consuming and difficult because I did have a lot of bulk because of so much old elastic and to get over these seams. So it was a little more time consuming than usual to get that in, but you just have to have a little bit of patience. Okay, we'll take our tool off and straighten up and bring all the way, this cording all the way through and straighten that up. And you can tell it's gathering up much more than it was because this elastic is much smaller than the waistband was, and it's going to be a lot much of a better fit for me, and I won't have to worry about these falling down as I'm exercising and as I'm walking around our neighborhood. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that this series and this tip has been helpful for you. If it was, please subscribe to my channel and share with all your friends. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Yay, they fit. See? Nice and snug, and nobody's even going to see all of the things that I did to them because I have my shirt tail over it and I'm just going to be exercising. So thanks for watching. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.